Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our reaction and review for Interview with the Vampire, Season 2, Episode 1. I know if you are immortal, undead, whatever you choose to call it, it may not seem like it's been that long since the show was on the air, but to all of us humans, it has been forever. Jess and I have been counting down the days, and we are thrilled to be able to talk about this show again.
I'm so excited that it's back. It's one of my favorite shows to talk about.
Yeah.
It's just such like of an emotional story, a human emotional story told through vampires. Like Louis is just one of my favorite TV characters. He's so complicated and he's just so emotional. He's really in touch with who he is and who he's trying to be and what he wants for himself and all the different complications that come along the way by some of the flawed relationships that he's had, how he got turned into a vampire, his relationship with Claudia. I mean, I just love him. Jacob Anderson is amazing in this. I mean, he was fantastic in season 1, but he just was cooking here in this premiere. Like amazing.
Yeah, I think he's incredible. I think, Delainey Hayles, who's come on board replacing Bailey Bass, like that's a pretty big challenge to do.
Amazing. She has come in and she has just embodied that character flawlessly, seamlessly. Like it, when it first came up with the credits, it's like, oh, now we're going to be having Claudia played,
Yeah.
over here. It was like, oh, okay, that's right. For those of you who don't know what happened, it seems that Bailey already had another engagement going on with Avatar, so she was able to do the first season, but she wasn't able to do the second season, which worked out okay. I
Mhm.
mean, we're here now, and the Claudia character feels like hasn't missed a step.
I was surprised they put that little thing at the start where it was like the role of Claudia is now
I'm
being
glad
played.
they did.
It was, yeah, it was kind of cool. And I guess because we are eventually getting to the vampire theater here this season, it kind of had a little
Yes.
bit of like that Broadway vampire. It's like, oh, this person is coming in for this role. So we have so much to get into here. So before we go any further, be sure to hit that subscribe button, sink your fangs good into it. We don't want you to miss anything else. And of course, that's a great way to help support us to be able to continue to make this content for you guys.
Absolutely. And if you want to find another way to support us, a great way to do that is through Patreon. It really helps us to continue on to make this content for you guys. And also, we have live streams over there every single week talking about Interview with the Vampire, all kinds of other shows that we cover here, as well as some shows that we don't cover at all, but we will talk about them over on our live streams. And those are
Mhm.
every week. So we'll have a link for you to join our Patreon below.
All right. Well, let's just pick things up here by talking about the interview itself because
Mhm.
this is my favorite part of the show. And I don't know what it is. I just like watching people in the same room get mad at each other. I think this is why I watched Line of Duty for so many years, even though it was watching people in an interrogation room for like 50 minutes. But I just,
Daniel is so mad at Armand for that trick. He is so mad.
Daniel is so salty within this episode, and you know what? I think I relate to Daniel more than any other character in this show because I can get kind of grumpy sometimes, and I can get kind of annoyed when somebody is trying to veer me off course. And you know, Daniel's just sitting there. He knows what Armand is doing. He sort of recognizes that. Oh, here comes Armand, like he's Louis' manager, who's just sort of trying to guide him through, trying to steer him in different ways, and he just wants what he wants. But I like the idea that yes, we have all this stuff in the past, but we have a story going on in the present, and it is actively a story. It's not just like some narrative device that explains away like what's happening. Like we're actually getting information in the present that is valuable about this relationship.
Yeah, and I think it's important for you guys to know as well that like I've read Interview with the Vampire a million years ago. Matt has not read it.
Nope.
So we are going into this sort of in that aspect. So just so you guys know, if you're going to leave us a comment to be like, hey, just so you know, Armand is this or Louis is this, keep it spoiler free as best as you can for us.
Yeah.
Because right now it feels very much like, yes, Armand is trying to steer things in a certain way. He has said, I didn't want you doing this interview at all, Louis. Like, I don't feel that great about it. There are pages that are missing from Claudia's diary that Louis has been reading to Daniel, and they've been very specifically taken out as a choice by Louis and Armand because Armand has said, I'm in those pages. And he didn't want to be part of this interview. He didn't want Louis doing it. He didn't want to be part of it either. But by the time we got to the end of this episode, Armand, he's sitting right there with his arm around Louis, being like, this is how it's going to be. We're going to be here and we're going to be here together. And if you don't want to interview Louis that way, then that is your problem, Daniel.
Okay, I have a comparison. I'm slightly afraid of saying it because I please don't come and suck my blood for saying this.
Oh,
It kind of reminds me a little bit of Louis on a Real Housewives show, and Armand is sort of like the husband on the Real Housewives show who's just sort of like, I understand you want to have your fun, you want to do this, that's fine, I'm going to continue. But then the cameras are there. He starts seeing the footage being shot. He starts seeing people throw wine at each other, and he's like, you know what? I do want to be involved. And he just starts running on camera. There is that sort of messiness that is sort of there about their dynamic. I mean, at the same time, I do kind of constantly want to shake Louis and just be like, listen, Armand, he's trying to control you. He is trying to just sort of do whatever he wants and not take your feelings into consideration all the time. And I just, because I'm so attached to Louis and I'm so rooting for Louis, I don't want to see that happen to him.
well, that's one of the things that makes this show as special as it does is Louis and the relationships that he's had that
Hmm.
are very relatable to a lot of people out there. Take out the vampirism out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, he's has this relationship with Lestat that was very bad. It was not in a good way. And it was one of his, you know, first real relationships. And then throw on being a vampire on top of it to make it even more complicated. And it was such a tough relationship. Lestat was very bad to him and for him. And he finally gets out of it, but he's still like, he can't let go. And I think that there's so many people out there that watch this show that are
Mhm.
able to relate to that, to be like, man, I have been in that situation in a relationship that is very bad and is very bad for me, but I just can't let go. And even when I do let go, I still can't let go.
Mhm.
And which is something that we saw where Louis did not want to burn Lestat. He sent him to the dump, you know, knowing that he could still survive it, and does. We saw
Mhm.
him eating rats. There's food there for him to be able to continue on. He just couldn't bring himself to do it. And we even see him through the years. It's like 4 years. Claudia's still mad at him about not burning the body, just ending it. And she's just like, you are carrying him with you still for all these years. Like, I am still here. Like, I need you to move forward so that you can move into healthier relationships going forward, make our relationship healthier, but you can't until you're able to let this go. And that's a very real thing for humans,
Mhm.
to not be able to sort of let that go and move forward. Like, one of the most compelling parts of this episode is seeing that Louis is still seeing Lestat.
Mhm.
Lestat is still in his mind and has said something that was gave me chills right to my bone, where he was basically like, "Oh yeah, I'm coming to kill you, but I'm going to wait until you're happy. The happiest you've ever been. And then I'm going to come into your life and then I'm going to ruin it." And that is those types of relationships that are so toxic and so bad for you. And you finally get out and then you're feeling better. And then who waltzes in? It's good old Lestat, here to just kick you back down again. I was like, there's going to be so many people out there that just relate to that and are like, oh no.
I am I'm grateful to see Lestat in this episode. I know it's a weird choice of words because Lestat is terrible and he's also saying he's going to kill Louis, but it's just, the Lestat character is so fascinating. And as somebody who, doesn't know the source material, I would kind of sit back and be like, okay, are we going to see Lestat again? Is San Reid done? But in between the end of season one, seeing him in these brief moments in the premiere, the fact that, Lestat and the actor are everywhere in a lot of the promotional material, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, we're going to see him again. But just to have that sort of visual reminder that he's still out there, that he's still living within Louis, and it's keeping him from being able to move forward. I think it makes that story a lot more profound. And then it also raises this question, at least for me, as somebody from the outside of this universe, of how is Armand, when Armand eventually meets him,
Mhm.
able to actually help him to get past a lot of this? Because it's already been years and it hasn't really worked. And, Claudia's certainly trying and nothing is really sticking there.
That this episode all about sort of Louis and Claudia and how they get to the other side of this, because they have been for years now looking for other vampires.
Yeah.
She's over Louis. She doesn't think that he's really there for her. She said, I've only, known a few vampires and all of you have not been the one for me. Like, I need to find somebody else. They're traveling through Europe. They're traveling through Romania looking for any other vampires. They see one that is not like them who ends up dead, and this woman who, if seemingly for this brief moment, Claudia is just like, oh my goodness, like, this is everything I'm looking for. Please come with us. Like, we can find more. We can find, blood that's not filled with sadness. You can be with us. I can be with you.
Mhm.
Yes. And she throws herself on the fire. And Claudia is so broken because it took them like 4 years
Yeah.
to find this one vampire who's now gone, that there's just nobody else. And it brings the two of them to this scene that for me was just one of the most powerful scenes of the entire franchise so far, is just him giving her like, okay, we're going to have the hard talk right now. And now we're going to have the soft talk, where if you were the last vampire on earth, it would be enough. And I was like, oh my God, he's he's just so in touch with himself on
Yeah.
some things and not in touch with himself on other things. But the one thing he knows is that Claudia is for him. He is for her. She is somebody that he truly deeply loves. I mean, he was willing to help kill Lestat for her, to be with her, that she was somebody he wanted to protect. And that really is the turning point, it seems, for them, that when they end up in France at the end of this episode, they seem like they're on a different level now. He hasn't let go of Lestat,
Yeah.
but he is there present with her as well.
It's important. It's very important for whatever the story is going to do moving forward, because they have to be on the same page, right? Like, communication matters, especially when you're sort of the quote unquote last of your kind. And we know that's not fully the case, but I think one of the aspects of this premiere that works really well, and I'm not even trying to make a silly pun here, but it's just being a vampire sucks. At least on this show, it really seems like it's pretty bad. This is not like
Very lonely.
yeah, it's the loneliness. This is not like some Edward Cullen situation where you are the dashing and handsome, sparkly vampire. Like, nothing about this life is being glamorized. You are out there on your own for years on end. You can't find anybody who is like you. You have to deal with this possibility. Like, for Claudia, especially, she's a child, and
Mhm.
she's always going to be a child, and she's always going to not be taken that seriously by a lot of other people because of how she looks like. And that's just got to be so draining on you over the course of a long period of time. And I think this show really hits a lot of those notes very, very well. And it kind of illustrates, okay, this is why Claudia is so desperate. And I understand why she's so desperate.
She's in such a, I can't imagine the
Yeah.
situation that she's in. She's a full grown adult in a child's body. Like,
Yeah.
she talked about this last season, and now she's even older. And it's just like, how do you deal with that? And no one really is able to understand it, because the other vampires she's met are all adults in adult bodies.
Mhm.
And she's an adult in a child's body trying to function as an adult, but also because she's in a child's body, nobody's taking her seriously, and she has to continue to play that role forever.
Okay. if there's one issue I have with this episode, and this,
No, you can see yourself out.
okay,
Disregard.
okay, you can
Disregard.
disregard. I'm still gonna
As
say it.
Daniel would say, disregard. Armand is talking.
Everyone
Disregard.
could disregard. I know all the book fans are going to be in the comments too, being like, "We're going to get there. We're going to get there." So this is my problem. The problem here is me. If you want to point a finger at somebody, it's AMC promoted all this stuff with the Vampire Theater and all this
We're
cool.
getting there.
I want to get there, and I was just sitting here this whole time like, "Where's the theater? Where's the stuff they've been promoting?" I want to get. I know that this season doesn't have that many episodes. And so with that in mind, I'm just very impatient. And it's not that the pace was necessarily slow, but it just felt like I wanted a little bit more from that in this episode, but maybe I'll feel differently once we get into the other stuff that's coming.
Listen, I want to get to the Vampire Theater as well. It's going to be very macabre. But I mean, I liked that they took their time with this episode to really fill me with that loneliness and sadness and thoughts of the past and trying to find a future where there's no future. It just is more emptiness. Like him saying, the blood is sad. It's filled with, desperation and loneliness and sadness. And we just can't find anything anywhere from anyone. It feels vast and huge. It's a huge world and there's nobody there for them. They really feel like they're the last two vampires on Earth, and we know that that's not the case, but they didn't know that at that time. And I think the slower pace of this episode made that work for me because it made it just feel very big, and it made them feel very small in a very big, dark, grim world that they just don't have a place.
What I will say is this. I get the feeling that the people who work behind the scenes on this show, the writers, the producers, obviously you mentioned Jacob, but it feels like they are all there.
Oh, Jacob. I love him so much.
I know. Okay, it's funny. I'm about to make no voice, but I'm about to get full on just at the stake now because after saying the Real Housewives analogy, I'm about to make another reality TV comparison. It feels like everyone on this show is there for the right reason. It feels no, it's
disregard.
Okay, you can't disregard that, but this is it feels like nobody is just there to make a quick buck off of the Anne Rice name. It feels like these people really care a lot about the material, about this world. They want to do right by it. Like I said, I don't know enough about the material to be, conscious of whether or not X, Y, or Z has changed. But I feel like if things are changed, there's probably a conscious reason for it. It doesn't feel like anybody is just like going halvesies on this adaptation and hoping that, they can just be successful and move on and it's just another project for them. It feels like there is a lot of time and effort and care being put into it. And the decisions that are being made on the show are intentional. So even if, people like me can come on here and yammer about wanting to see the Vampire Theater, they're like, okay, slow your roll, dude. We're getting there and what we're giving you is for a good reason. Have some trust in you. So I will try to surrender myself and see where things go.
They are taking their time and it is delicious. I'm very happy that they're taking their time, especially with these scenes with Louis, because for me, he's the show. Like, I love Claudia and I, loved watching Lestat. I know loved is, probably not the right word, but it is for this whole storytelling experience. Everybody is bringing what they need to the table. But this episode just felt very intimate because this was really about Louis. And while, there was, of course, the Claudia story as well, she's like, man, I just want to find somebody else. For him, he's really dealing with letting go of his past and he can't do it, but to also be able to be there in the present so he can be there in the future with Claudia because she is so important to him that he did what he did with Lestat and he participated in that for her. And now he doesn't even have her anymore. Like that scene where they're sort of at the campfire and he's like, man, I can't get warm. What about you? And he's just like, yeah, me too, Uncle Louis. Like she won't even talk to him anymore. And with them being that feeling, the last two vampires on Earth, and they're not even talking, like how much more lonely can it be? Oh, God, Louis.
Jacob Anderson, if you want to come over and be our friend.
He's just such a treasure. I just absolutely love his performance. The writing for him is excellent. He's He's just amazing.
I'll be honest, I didn't know he had this in him before this show started, just because, I mean, my experience with him was Game of Thrones, and,
Yeah, and that character didn't have enough to do.
yeah, so, but he's been such a pleasant revelation. I am very, very excited to see where they go with this from here, and, we'll be here every week.
Yep.
Talking all about it. We will do our interview with the vampire, except our interview is just us talking and they don't get to respond, but that's fine.
That's right. Disregard.
All right. Well, no, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you to our patrons as well. We really appreciate that. And we'll see you guys here next time.